On this episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast, me and Josh sit down to reminisce about some of our favorite shows, some of the worst shows we've ever seen, and we talk a lot about how kids are missing out these days on the lack of park shows and Battle of the Bands. So thanks for jumping on, and let's open this pit up.
Somebody hit somebody!
All right, we haven't done this without Trevor before, so if we get canceled, this is the episode to listen to.
It's Trevor's fault for not coming.
Yeah, I'm here with Kyle and Josh, and Trevor decided he would go on a cheap cruise instead of talk about bands with us this week. So
Yeah.
I hope he drowns.
What's funny?
I hope he doesn't drown.
We were like, nah, I was like talking to this band that we're trying to get on Instagram and stuff. And I was like, yeah, Trevor, like the guy that normally schedules stuff, cause he's the responsible one. I was like, he decided to take a stupid trip with his family. So, and it's like, yeah, what's he thinking? This podcast for a dozen people to listen to is way more important than lifelong memories for his family. You know?
Yeah. Well, I know, I'm sure when he reaches out, he's probably got an outline resume and it's super professional. And like, I'm sure when I reach out to somebody, I'm like, yo, and that's it.
You know what's super funny is like, one of the drummer for the band Gator that we've talked about a little bit. It's a local hardcore band from Salt Lake that just started, super dope, pumped for their album. But him and Trevor have like been messaging a whole bunch back and forth on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And he like reached out to Trevor. It was like, hey, are you at the Take Offense show that was in Salt Lake? And I was like, I don't know. Like, go crowd kill him and see if it is. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I was like, well, just so you know, this is Kyle, like Trevor's out of town and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I figured it was because you can tell when I'm running the social media because of all the stupid memes that I post on our story. Because Trevor gives me so much crap for that. Because I post that stuff and he texts me. He's like, what are you doing? But so you guys can always tell who's on social media. Because if it's really dumb memes, like the one of the alien and the Sasquatch guys playing music, that's 100% me. So.
Well, anyway, what have you been up to? We're kind of a day late on this podcast.
Yeah. This week's been kind of freaking crazy. Just bunch of work crap, bunch of family stuff going on. I don't know what happened in January, but literally everyone's sick everywhere. And I saw this meme that was like, in January, 1 week, kid had strep. 2nd week, kid had flu. 3rd week, kid was sick. 4th week, he's finally healthy. 5th week, stomach bug. And it's like, that's exactly what's happened with my family. Just straight sickness. And then you start to get better. And then something else comes up and kids are throwing up and crap. So
I still have like a little bit of phlegm left in my like throat or like my lungs. And it doesn't hit me until I'm sleeping, almost when like everything's so relaxed. And then I can feel it and I just start coughing.
Yeah.
But like it ran through my house. It's actually ran through my work. Like, so where we work, we have a bunch of different contracts, and there's one contract where there's 5 guys gone. They're all sick. And and it's like all the supervisors too. But there's been a few kids that have come to work sick, and we've literally been like, go home. Yeah. Like, we don't want you here. Like, we'll pay you whatever, go home. So, but
crazy.
Yeah, it's been a rough year. As far as sickness goes, like pretty sure
it's only January. Well, I guess it's February now. So
yeah. I'm pretty sure we had COVID, influenza B, influenza A, whatever, A through Z. But yeah, it's been rough.
It sucks. It's been a long 33 years. So I was just gonna say, you've been listening to anything good?
Oh, let's see. So I haven't checked out that Boundaries song that you sent me. You said they added clean vocals, and you obviously expressed your feelings about it.
I'm not like anti-clean vocals, right? Like, I'm cool with it. But when you go from their last album that's just straight in your face heavy, and they don't really have like a lot of clean singing, to go to this, which it just felt like they were like, what's Fit for a King doing? I'm going to do that.
Right.
That's how I felt. And
what bums me out is like, to me, they are a perfect heavy hardcore melodic band. Like it's almost like they're kind of like counterparts. They're just way heavier. So I'm like, why would you mess with perfection like that?
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly how I feel.
Yeah. Like it, I could see that for sure. I haven't listened to it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I would hear it and go, man, come on. But
That's exactly how I felt because I really liked their last album. And so I know, like, but I understand too at the same time where it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't for bands because it's like you either keep the same sound and people complain all the time, or you
yeah,
change your sound and then people complain and stuff. But I just feel like there's got to be a good medium where you're like still doing what you is you, but like growing. And I didn't feel like this was growth for them. I felt like this was like a big label picked them up and said, "Nope, this is what you're doing," and they just gave them what Fit for a King does.
yeah, it's weird. Like they also the tours I've seen them on haven't really ever been with like any bands that really attract like hardcore kids. They attract more like metal kids.
Yeah.
But I really feel like they would fit great on a bill with a hardcore band.
So, do you think? Let me ask you this: do you think some of these bands are using hardcore and the hardcore scene to prop themselves up to get on with like a Fit for a King? I'm going to keep bagging on Fit for a King just because of what they've done their last couple albums. But do you think people are because all we do is talk about how sick the like local scene is, how like loyal people are, how much they'll go out for where
Mhm.
you're from and bands from where you're from and stuff like that. Do you feel like some of these bands are propping themselves up with that and then selling out way hard when they kind of make it?
You know, I will say for sure it really does feel like that with a lot of bands. There was huge controversy with like Turnstile,
Mm-hmm.
for example. You listen to that song Death Grip off their first EP, and it's a perfectly written song for that kind of band. But you listen to them now, like nominated for like a Grammy
Yeah,
and all this, and they're playing Coachella and stuff. On one flip of the coin, it's like that's really cool to see like a hardcore band like make it. But on the other hand, you're like, but did they just do it for fame and money? Like
yeah,
Code Orange is another one.
yeah,
They
for
dropped
sure.
that album I Am King, and it's just like heavy banger after heavy banger. Like you want to kill the entire room, and then everything else they released after that was just like
Yeah,
like you're a modern day Slipknot. What
yeah.
happened?
Well, and I feel like there are though on the flip side, there are bands that I feel like haven't like have gotten the fame and popularity that these bands are talking about, but haven't really sold out. I mean, look at Knocked Loose. Like
Right.
I'm not a Knocked Loose fan, but I respect that they haven't really like sold out to the crowd that's made them popular. I mean, they're taking Speed on tour.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're not a true hardcore fan, I don't think you're taking Speed on tour. And same thing with Kubla Khan. I don't know if you saw their second half of their tour.
I remember
It's
you
got
saying.
Harm's Way and Pain of Truth. Like
Mm-hmm.
Kubla Khan's huge, but you don't bring a Harm's Way or Pain of Truth if you're not still ingrained in the hardcore scene, So it's
Yeah. I think the ties what maybe makes the bands differ is like kids playing in a hardcore band versus hardcore kids playing in a band. And like I would probably think it's fair to say that like Knocked Loose is the band like Fit for a King where other bands want to be like them. Like they defined almost like they are the heavy genre of today's
yeah,
music. I mean, it was actually I think it was Scott Vogel from Terror that said something like it's so weird being like a supporting act for Knocked Loose, but we all knew this was going to happen. So
right,
yeah, I like I would say I think the almost the evidence speaks for itself, but whether any band is going to admit that, probably
sure.
not.
No, I know. That just popped in my mind about boundaries because it's like come from the hardcore scene, get a bunch of pull from the hardcore scene, but this new song just feels like they sold out that part of
Hmm.
it. And you look at bands like Koyo, like you don't even have to play heavy music to not do that
Yeah,
because Koyo is still like a hardcore band,
yeah,
you know. So
they're to me they're the modern day set your goals as
yeah,
far as like they could be put on a heavy bill and a pop punk bill and it won't matter. I did get to check out that show this last weekend. It was Thursday, Rival Schools and Many Eyes. Interesting lineup. Only three bands. I was pumped. I was out of there by like 10:30.
yeah. It's because they're all old. I don't know about rival school. Is that
Oh,
what you said?
they're probably the oldest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that band is got members from Civ, Quicksand,
That's right.
and Youth of Today. So that's almost like like legend, all the legends from New York, I guess you could
Yeah.
think of it. But they were just kind of like rock and roll, pop rock. It was cool, not really my thing, but like cool to listen to. I was actually really pumped and really nervous to hear Many Eyes. So this is the new project from Keith Buckley, from Every Time I Die, and they've released, I think, 3 songs, and they've been okay. Like just a more structured Every Time I Die is like what I got out of it, and they played a lot of songs off of a new album. They haven't given a release date, a name. They have nothing. But I will say a lot of the songs they played off of their new stuff, I was way more into that than what they've released online.
Release.
It is interesting to see Keith Buckley on stage sober. He's not crazy.
Oh, really?
No, he was pretty calm throughout the entire set, but he sounded really good. So I was pumped for that to actually listen to a band that can actually play live.
So what did some of those songs sound like though? Did it sound like newer Every Time I Die? Was it similar to the ones they've released, or was it heavier and stuff?
Uh it's like a different kind of heavy. It wasn't like fast-paced southern riff stuff. It was actually kind of a little slower and more singing, but it sucks because I don't know the song name or anything.
Yeah.
There's no way to kind of share it or whatever, but man, it's just good. I'll have to send you a clip. Maybe we can
Okay.
post it. I think I've got a
Yeah.
clip of it, but I just remember listening to it live and I was like, man, I bet this sounds so good on record.
Yeah.
But
That's cool. I saw a couple of the clips that you sent, and yeah, it looked good. He sounded good even from, your phone. So
yeah, that's because I got the new iPhone 15. I got 2
there you
speakers.
go.
Thursday, it was the 20-year anniversary of War All the Time. I know there's huge debate on which the best CD from Thursday is. It's either Full Collapse or War All the
But
Time, and
it's War All the Time.
it's War All the Time, 100%. I mean, maybe that's biased because that's the first album I heard, but that was the album that got me into what I'm into today. But yeah, dude, that front to back, every song. And I just remember listening to this or listening to it play, and I'm like, this is an album I can listen to front to back every single time. But
Yeah, I think it was just Trevor that said he liked Full Collapse more. So Trevor's
yeah,
not here, so
yeah,
suck it. And it's War All the Time, 100%.
I'll die on
So
that ship.
I'm pretty bummed. Yeah, I'm pretty bummed that they aren't coming to Dallas. But they're coming to Austin, and there's a guy here that I'm friends with that's a little older that his all-time favorite band is Thursday. And I was trying to talk him into just driving down to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would drive down during the day, see Thursday, and then just drive right back. But
Right.
it's on like a Tuesday, so I don't think we'd be able to do it.
So it's interesting, and I didn't know this, and it was Jeff that said it on stage. So it's the last song on War All the Time. It's called "Tomorrow I'll Be You." I think that's what it was. Yeah, it was "Tomorrow I'll Be You," and they said this is actually a 2-part song, and we're gonna play it how it should have been recorded on the album. And apparently, Jet Black was supposed to be the second half, but it never made it onto this album. It was put on the EP. So I thought it was interesting. So they did play Jet Black. They came back out. They played a couple more songs, like 3, I think. They ended with "Understanding in a Car Crash."
Nice.
I thought this was cool. I mean, he shared it publicly, so it doesn't matter. But I can't remember the song they played, but they played one song, and he said like they were headed to play some show, and it was a venue they've dreamed about selling out for the entirety of the band, and they'd sold it out, and he was so pumped. And he got a phone call from his mom, and his mom was telling him that Nana died, and he had just had all these emotions about like where my perspective's at in life. I'm worried about selling out the show. My grandma's passed away at home, and I guess his mom and he's like, what do I do? And his mom was like, well, I'll tell you, your grandma did pass away at the computer looking at your band, and she was just so pumped at what you were doing. And that was when he was just had that sensation. Is like, we got to play the show tonight. But yeah, I thought that was super cool. If your
Dude,
grandma likes your stuff, you got a good grandma.
Nothing but respect for Jeff Rickley, man. He just wrote a book,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm interested in reading it. I finishing up another book right now, and then that's the next one on the list. But
He does have that book at the merch table.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I think up in Seattle, he did drop some off at a bookshop up there. So he has been putting it out there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's got like super good reviews online.
Really?
So, which, I mean, he's one of the greatest like lyricists for this music of all time, right? So I have no
100%.
doubt that his book is just incredible and stuff too.
You know
So,
what's cool is it was in one of their posts. They put up they came up for a while. The time they came up with themes and wrote their songs around the themes. I'd have to find the post, but I thought that was interesting because I don't think that's really ever talked about in writing music per se.
right.
Coming up with a theme to kind of write around.
Well, now I'm gonna have to listen to Thursday like all day tomorrow.
But anyway, yeah. The other thing I will say that's really cool about this band is they attract not just like one scene of people. It is a huge brass band. I ran into people that I haven't seen in 17, 20 years from like high school. Friends I still go to hardcore shows with today. People that are way older than me, like from a different generation. Just a huge broad span
Yeah,
of people that all kind of share the same love for this band. So I thought that was super cool.
that is sick. Yeah,
But
I'm jealous. Maybe I'll DM him again and be like, dude, since you ignored my last message about the secret lives of the Freemasons, you can
mhm.
make it up to me by coming to Dallas.
It's
But
funny. We were cleaning out my son's room the other day, and I have a bunch of I have a bunch of band onesies. So like I have a sick of it all one that says it's slobbering time, and then
That's tight.
I have I have another one. It's a Thursday one, and it says I will never sleep again. Sharon's like, do we get rid of this? No, no, we're
Yeah,
holding
you
on to
gotta
that
keep those,
forever.
dude. Yeah, that's
So,
sick.
but anyway,
Um, so a couple albums that I've been listening to this week. Are you a fan of Being as an Ocean?
I remember the band name, but I don't remember how they sound.
So imagine like
Dragons, beef.
Defeater. Yeah, Imagine Dragon. Anyways, imagine like Defeater, but with some singing in it.
Okay.
It's really cool. I really like it. They've gotten more like digital and like have added some like synths as they've progressed. It's just two guys now that are doing it. So,
Hmm.
but they just released a new album. I'm a huge fan of it. I know not everyone likes it, but I'm a huge fan of them. They seem like chill dudes too, and they just released a new album. I think it's really good. The other one is we talked about this a little bit, but Cosmic Joke. Have you listened
Mm-mm.
to them?
I haven't. What kind of music
Dude,
is it?
it's like punk. It's like really fast hardcore. You listen to it and you're like, oh, this is like an oi punk band. But then they have like two-steppy breakdown type stuff in their song, and I'm like, this is the perfect mix of the music that I'm into right now. So if you haven't listened to them, go check out that new album because it's tight.
I recognize some of these guys.
Yeah, they just
I don't know
I
if
think
that's a
they
good thing
released
or
it on
not.
Triple B. So what?
I was like, I recognize some of these guys. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, for hardcore kids, they all look alike.
It's funny because you look at their picture, like 3 or 4 of them actually do look a lot alike. So,
I don't know why. That's
but
cool though.
it's a cool album. It's just different. I miss this type of hardcore, that's more punk influenced. So when albums like this get dropped, I'm all on it. So it's a good album though.
There is there's a band that just well, they haven't come out of the woodworks. They haven't posted they're going to play a show at all. But like everyone's kind of at the edge of their seats. So in like 2007, like deathcore was huge. That was like the epitome for like metal kids and hardcore kids.
Yeah.
That was when like bands like Knights of the Abyss were like huge. Winds of Plague was brand new. Whitechapel was brand new. All Shall Perish.
Yep.
Like that was just the thing. Suicide Silence, The Faceless,
Bleeding Through.
Bleeding Through, As Blood Runs Black, like you name it. Impending
With
Doom.
blood comes cleansing. I mean, dude, we can go on for.
Yeah. So anyway, well, there was a band around that time. They were called Elijah. They were from Sacramento. So they disbanded in like 2009, and they have an early CD. Let me look it up. What it's called? They have this early CD called Masochist. Masochist.
Masochist.
Masochist.
Are
You
we looking
can't
at
find
different
that
Elijah?
album
Okay.
anywhere. It doesn't exist. It's not on digital platforms. Like to find a copy of it is like slim to none. Well, so I was on Instagram the other day scrolling through, and somebody posted something from Elijah, and I was like, what? So I clicked on it, and I've been watching them the last few days. They're doing a huge release of like Masochist on like vinyl, tapes, streaming platforms. They're doing a whole merch drop again.
Sick.
And like all everyone's been waiting for him to say is like, please tour, just tour. As far as like deathcore goes around that era, dude, that album in itself and like that band was definitely probably one of my top favorite bands at that time. That's
Yeah,
been
we'll
really
watch
cool watching. So like they're doing a merch drop tomorrow and all this stuff, and I'm so pumped because I'm probably gonna like burn my phone in half listening to this.
Well, remind me tomorrow. I'll listen to it too.
So might bring you back to like the 2007 era going, yep, not into it, but I remember.
Sure. I remember blasting like Sea of Treachery in my car and stuff. So yeah,
Oh, dude, I haven't heard that name in a long
I
time.
know. It's a bummer that they kind of fell off.
You know, they came through and played here in like 2013, and there was like 5 kids there.
Really?
Yeah, it got like terrible promotion, and I remember that being a huge deal. And like they never came through again, and it's like they just disappeared after that.
At Daggers Drawn, that album is so sick.
Yeah, is that the blue one?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. I still, man, I haven't listened to it in a while, but I think I still remember how that one like popular song goes. I think it's the second song on the album.
It starts out like dun, 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 dun. Yeah, dude. Straight up. Yeah.
But anyway, well, sick, dude. Well, so this episode like is going to be a little different. We don't have a band to talk about. We were going to have a guest on here, but he decided he was too cool for us.
Oh, yeah, it's my little
Kyle's
brother. Huh?
Yeah, it's Kyle's little brother.
He's a chump. So
freaking Judas.
He didn't want to get on because he's like, I'm fixing my motorcycle. And I'm like, you're an idiot. I should have beat him up more when I was a kid.
You should have told him to fix his attitude.
It's true. Doesn't he fix his attitude? Well, he went to Sewn Shut, like that local show last week, and I kept telling to Trevor, I was like, Trevor, just freaking hit him, like at the show. Just go punch him in the back of the head and be like, this is for Kyle. This is from Kyle. But he didn't do it.
Welcome to Salt Lake.
Yeah. It's like the first hardcore show he's ever been to. So he said he liked it and wanted to keep going. But
well, that's good. At least it wasn't a bad one. That's how you get lured in.
I know.
No, dude, it's way fun. And then it's like 10 shows in, and then it's like, dude, this only happens every once in a while. And then it happens every time. You just weren't involved the first 10.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I told him it was a slippery slope too. I was like, you're going to start going to this, and before you know it, you're going to get face tattoos, and you're going to crowd kill someone at a Thursday show, and
dude,
got assaulted or something. You know,
there's this guy I work with, and like when I was talking to him, come to find out, when he got like into music, he was into like Reba McEntire, right? Nice. But like now, he is straight up like an atheist. His favorite band is Infant Annihilator. You will never convince him different. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so what went wrong?
That's a huge cliff that you fell off of, man.
Yeah. And he was like, have you ever heard a band like this? They're never going to beat this band. And I'm like, yeah, man, I can't. I that's too much for me. I can't do it. But well, yeah. So we don't really have a band to talk about. We just thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about like a few shows we went to back in the day. Bigger tours, bigger things we used to do, and like local. And anyway, I was gonna start off by asking this question. I know we talked about this a few days ago, but I was gonna ask you, and I'll talk about mine too. 3 of the worst, if you have 3 of the worst shows you've ever been to for any reason. If it was like nobody there, getting kicked out, terrible venue, like heat, exhaustion, whatever it may be.
It's funny because we were talking about this a little bit before, and we've been to like hundreds of shows, and they've all kind of blurred together. The thing is like, I feel like, and maybe this is part of the discussion we can have, but I feel like the majority of the shows we went to were not good. Terrible quality, like crowds kind of sucked, drama at all these shows. I mean, we kind of lived for that crap because it was still fun, but like the actual show kind of sucked. But one show that comes to my mind is like one of the worst shows I ever saw was, I want to say it was the Dragon Force, and I don't know how I got roped into going this. I think I went with my mom, but it was like Dragon Force and He Is Legend at the Salt Air. I can't remember who else was on that.
Oh
So that's a
no.
huge venue, but there was nobody there, and all of them were just plastered. Like He Is Legend and Dragon Force, wasted.
Mm-hmm.
The He Is Legend guy couldn't even like stand up to sing. He was falling over. And I'm a big He Is Legend fan, so I was super disappointed at that. And then the Dragon Force guys just sounded like garbage up there. I
Really?
don't know what it was. Yeah, it was a terrible show, and I wasted a ton of money for it. And yeah, I just, any show where guys are like falling over drunk, which happened a bunch, anything with Johnny Craig, it just sucked, you know? So
Right. There's definitely a point where like you're there. I mean, you're there to kind of like mosh and have fun or whatever, but like it's also to a point where you're like, yeah, man, I can't do that. I mean, I remember watching Escape the Fate when they came with Bullet for My Valentine, or even at Warped Tour, and he was just so plaster drunk where I was like, dude,
yeah.
I can't watch this.
Yep.
Like I'm embarrassed watching it.
So one of the other ones was that I Wrestled a Bear show. I wrestled a bear once that got canceled because people were fighting. That sucked.
Yeah.
That's like a different reason though. But shoot, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong saying that a lot of them were bad. Maybe more of them were good. I think I got more examples of really good shows that I went to than really bad ones.
Or like maybe I would say this. I think when we went to bigger shows, the bands 90% of the time were awesome. You know, going to see
Yeah.
like It Dies Today, Haste the Day, As They Lay Dying, Through the Eyes of the Dead, Thursday, Thrice Under Oath, The Blood, The Used, whatever. The bands 90% of the time were like really good.
Yeah.
But dealing with the crowd sucked because it was so thick. Trying to get like
Yeah.
4 feet of space to just mosh or whatever, do your
Yeah.
thing. That sucked. Like that
That's,
was a hard thing to deal with.
it's funny talking about that now because I don't know that maybe some crowds, I think some bands are drawing crowds like that, but a lot of the shows that I've been to, like there's no problem opening pits up and stuff. And I do think about back in the day with some of these bands. Like I remember that it was a Haste the Day show up in Ogden, and
Mhm.
it was like me, you, and a couple other guys would like link arms and just try and like push people out of the way. Like we would just run, but you can't, like you still couldn't even mosh at all because
Yeah.
it was so packed. But I also, looking back, was like, that's a good thing though, right? Because it was like people
Right.
showed up. So
But then like on the like I say on the flip side, if you went to a show where you could mosh, most of the bands we saw like that, like local bands, they just weren't good. You just had room to be able to do your thing with your friends and have fun. But like, dude,
yeah,
bands just they just weren't good. Like, I'm really glad MySpace is not a thing now because I'm pretty sure if I went back and listened to most of those bands, I'd be like, ugh, what was I thinking?
yeah, no, for
But
sure. So what are some of the worst shows you've been to then?
dude, I've got some wild stories that are kind of funny to talk about now. But so okay, so I went to this show. Well, backstory. So I was dating this girl, and like while we were together, like I bought her concert tickets to go to Dashboard Confessional and Brand New. It was down at UVU. That's the one down there in Orem, right?
Yeah.
UVU.
UVU, Utah Valley University.
Anyway, I bought her these tickets, and then I bought her tickets to go to Silverstein. Anyway, it was like 2 weeks later, she broke up with me or whatever. But like, still hung out, and it was like super weird, you know. And she was like, "Will you still take me to to Dashboard Festival?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." Like, I can't get my money back. I'm like, "We'll still," and I wanted to see Dashboard Conventional really bad.
Yeah.
But she was like a fan of Brand New at the time. So anyway, I like get her, and at the time I didn't have a car, so I was using my parents, and we drive down to Provo, and she was like, "I've got some friends that want to hang out," because that's where she was from. And I remember we showed up to the mall, and there was this guy and this girl that she was friends with, and we like walked up, and like I introduced myself, and literally she like hugged the dude and then like kissed him right in front of me, and I was like, what have I got
Played,
myself
man.
into? So like at the time, dude, I did not have the balls to just like bail.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I'm
you
like,
just hung out there?
dude, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, what do I do? And so anyway, we hang out at the mall for a little bit and then we leave. And I'm like, I didn't even want to ask any questions at that point. I'm like, I just want to go to the show. So we go and Brand New opens. And she's like on her phone. Anyway, she's like, my friends want to hang out after. And I'm like, no. Like, I'm going home after. And she was like, well, I only want to see Brand New. And I'm like, okay. Well, Dashboard's playing after. And she goes, I don't care to see Dashboard. And I'm like, okay. Well, so anyway, I remember after Brand New got done playing, she was like, well, I'm leaving. So she got up and left. And I was like, I can't like just let her go, you know, be the dude that just like ditched some girl in Provo by herself. And so I remember I left. And when you left that venue, there was you couldn't return. Like there was no in and out. Once you left, you
Yeah.
were done. And I was pissed because those were like $100 total. And I remember I left, like her friends like dipped on her or something like that. So I didn't get to see Dashboard, and I'm still mad about it. And then I had to drive that girl back home. And I was so mad. But I remember she was like, I don't want to go to Silverstein. And I was like, well, if you give me your ticket, I'll sell it and I'll just give you the money. And I just gave it to my brother. And then that's when we went and saw Dice today.
There you go. All right.
So that's one wild one.
That's freaking hilarious.
Dude, that's burned forever in my brain. And I think about it now and I'm like, why didn't I just bail on her?
Exactly.
No, me now, I'd be like, nah, man.
Yeah, absolutely should be the guy that bails on her when she pulls crap like that.
Yeah. Another one, I started going to shows in 2005, but I started going to hardcore shows around like 2007, I would say. And in 2008, I had it pulled up. There was a tour coming through. It was like Emir, Recon, On Broken Wings, and After the Burial, I think. Anyway, they came through, and dude, that was such a heavy show. And like that was like my first, not my first hardcore show by any means, but it was definitely, I'm like, I am like way out of my realm right now. Like I don't really know. I knew like friends from Ogden, but I didn't know anybody from Salt Lake, and so that was a huge change for me. Anyway, like there was a huge fight that broke out during a mirror. And this is like one of the biggest fights I had seen at that time. I remember like chairs getting thrown, and it wasn't like a certain group of people. It was the entire venue. I remember like the soundboard being like bodied, and just like the band just kept playing, and it was just complete chaos. Couldn't see anything. Lights went out, the whole deal. And then yeah, Amir I think was the last band to play, and they didn't finish their set. I remember they were playing that song "Won't You Be My Bride," and they were just playing it, and the fight just kept going, and I was just like, "Holy shit!" And I just remember sitting there like I didn't know what to do or like who to fight or if I should fight or like what the fight was over or anything. I was just like, dude, there were girls fighting, there was like dudes fighting, like girls fighting dudes, like it was complete chaos. It was insane.
You sure it wasn't just a big pit?
Oh, dude, I remember all the security guards that night. They all got beat up. Dude, it was just complete chaos. And I remember leaving, going, "Wow, I'm glad I didn't die." Like, you know.
Yeah.
But that was a wild one. That was when that happened. I was like, you know, that was kind of like my first, I guess, experience of like, man, that can get real quick, and you better have sides picked or friends.
You better know
like,
what you're doing. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. So, and obviously I'm still doing it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just kind of roll with it. But, and then here's my last one, and you're probably going to die over this, but so a little backstory. So I've kind of mentioned it before that I don't have a butthole now. But,
okay.
so to make that real quick, I have my large intestine removed. I have a stoma now. And what caused that is I had a disease called ulcerative colitis, and it basically made me have to go to the bathroom within like instant seconds.
Right.
So I had it from 22 to 30. So this is 2013. I'm 23 years old. Had no intentions of going to this show. And we had some friends that were going out to California to play this fest called SoCal Slam. It was a fest that was only around for 1 year, but dude, it had like figure four, harm's way, harness, down presser, rotting out played, just awesome lineup, awesome bands. And anyway, one of my buddies hit me up, was like, hey, like, do you want to go? Like, let's get a car full of people. So we left Friday at like 6, drove through the night, got there, got a hotel where the rest of our friends were staying at, slept until like 10, and then went to the show that day. So it was like the second day of the show, so that would have been Saturday. So this was Sunday. Well, I've been having problems, having to go to the bathroom like literally within like 5 seconds of like, hey, I've got to go. So, and it would come and go. I would never kind of know when it was going to happen. So I'm sitting during Harm's Way set, like in the pit, and I'm like, dude, this is sick, like I was pumped.
Yeah.
And, dude, I just felt my stomach. And I was like, oh no, instant like panic. So like, you ever seen white girls?
Uh-huh.
Or white chicks? Yeah, I was literally like, move, bitch. Like, beelining it for the bathroom, like just blowing past people. Well, I get to the bathroom and there's a line into the stalls, and I'm like, dude, I'm like sweating. I have the meat sweats. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I run to the back of the venue, and they've got all the merch in the back of the venue. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I can feel it coming, and there's nothing that I can do. So I start running down the alleyway, and I shit my pants.
Oh my gosh.
But like it was so bad where I was hiding behind bushes completely naked. Like, pants were gone, underwear was not salvageable. I didn't know what to do, and I was using my shirt to like clean myself up. Well, I have my phone, and my brother wouldn't answer. So I was like, I don't know what to do. So I had to put my pants back on with no underwear.
Uh-huh.
I ditched my shirt. So I'm walking down this alleyway in the middle of Southern California, just looking like a straight up bum.
Yeah.
And there was one of those like barrier walls from the alleyway to the parking lot. I jumped over that, and like I'm over by the car that we took, and my brother finally comes out, and I'm trying to coax him over, and he goes, where's your shirt? And I'm like, dude, go get the keys from our buddy. I gotta go buy some clothes, and I gotta like go take a shower. And he was like, why? And I'm like, dude, just go get the keys. He was like, I don't understand why your shirt's gone. And I was like, because I shit my pants and I used my shirt. Dude, he's bent over in half in the parking lot. He can't breathe.
Yeah.
He's laughing so hard. I'm like, it's not funny anymore. We'll laugh about it later. I need to go shower.
I need to get this off of me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
disgusting.
I got to see like 2 songs of Harm's Way, and then I was in Harm's Way, and then
You potentially could have put a lot of other people in harm's way too.
yeah, 100%. Probably top 3 worst shows for me for
That's great.
a wide variety of reasons.
That's amazing.
But
It's amazing that you're just so open about. I mean, at least you have an excuse of like, I had some serious health issues. It wasn't just like you just deuced your pants.
yeah.
Well,
it's funny, like, when I power lift and stuff, like I get the craziest looks. So like I wear like multiply gear and all this stuff. So like I have to take like pants off to put like suits on and whatever.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of time, like I'll have like the top part of my suit off, and sometimes I'm not wearing a shirt, and my bag just hangs out. And like the people I train with know, but then they'll start kind of asking questions like, "What is that?" And I'm like,
Here, come smell it.
"It's my bag." And they're like, "Okay," and they're like, "Well." I was like, I haven't lost me. And they're like, oh, so you just have like a tube that comes out of you? And I'm like, oh no, my intestine's stitched to the front of my stomach. And they're just, and like, you're okay? And I'm like, yeah, I got to go do my 3rd attempt. I'll talk to you in a minute.
It's crazy. Crazy that you can freaking lift like that. But
Yeah,
Shoot.
that's fun.
I don't, I'm trying to think of like some shows that I've had that have been like that. I really don't think I have any. Maybe I'm the boring one. I never thought I'd say that.
Dude, I remember shows trying to leave the Saltaire, and it would take, I swear, like an hour to get out of that parking lot, or even to get to the Saltaire.
Yeah.
Try not to die on what was it, I-80, or
Yeah. I-80.
because there was only one off ramp for that freaking venue, and like you'd be on the emergency lane on the freeway for like 30 minutes.
I remember driving out to shows there when we'd get stuck in traffic and like, because it literally is, people that don't know Utah very well, Salt Air is literally this giant venue that's on like the Great Salt Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And to drive out to the Great Salt Lake, you drive on like, it's not a bridge, but it's a road that kind of feels like a bridge because you're like driving kind of on the Salt Lake, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it feels really weird doing that. But I remember, and we've had Chris, our friend Chris, on, and you could tell like we would be passing cars to get there. And you could tell that these guys were going to the shows and whatever. But this was back before, he'd be put on a list. But I don't know what his deal was, but every single time we would pass a car, go to the Salt Air, he'd be hanging bare butt out the window, mooning people. And it was always like the freaking funniest thing ever because this is little skinny, scrawny dude, and he would hold on to like the handle on the
Dude,
door
that's funny.
and just straight up moon people. So those
That's
are like
hilarious.
those are my fond memories of going to the Salt Air. But, yeah.
I think probably I'll switch gears, but I'll give like to the first two like memorable shows. I think the first one is the first show, like big show I went to, which was Under Oath the Bled and Thrice. So at the time, those were like top three favorite bands for me. And like to me, that was like you're never gonna get a better lineup than that. And like it's my first time kind of seeing like hardcore pitting, and I didn't know what it was, so everyone was trying to fight each other, and I didn't want to fight. That was when Under Oath was still touring on. They're only chasing safety, and they had just switched singers, so they weren't playing anything from Cries of the Past or Act of Depression. And then Thrice had just released Vehesu, so the majority of their stuff was Illusions of Safety, Identity Crisis, and Artists in the Ambulance. So
Right.
that was a good era for me to see them in. And then the Bled had just released Found in the Flood, so most of their stuff was off of Past the Flask, and that was insane to me to see.
Yep.
Remember the singer coming out with a cardboard cutout of himself?
Cardboard cutout. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got a really weird list, I feel like, of some of the best shows I've seen. I think it's probably not what a lot of people would expect, but whether you love or hate this band, I saw Circus Survive right after what was that album? I can't remember the name of it. On Letting Go. Juturna. Okay. It's the one after that, On Letting Go, and that's the album that has like the difference between medicine. I don't know that song, whatever. Mm-hmm. It was right after that album had released. It was like 2007 or whatever. And I went with Chris, the kid that is a habitual mooner.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. We went and saw Circus Survive, and I don't know what it was, dude. Like, I wasn't on drugs or anything, right? Never done drugs. But the like atmosphere of the show that they put on it like gave me chills being in there. Cause musically it's very like ambient and, melodic and like all this stuff. And the lights and the lasers were so freaking cool. And they had like bubble machines. Yeah. And like some of their songs, like they would shoot confetti out, and just the whole performance of them playing that kind of music with all the effects and stuff. It really like pulled you into the show, and it was almost like an out of body experience. I will always remember that show just because of how cool like you felt in that environment,
It's like your first introduction to like underground production.
Yeah.
Where it's like Circus Survive to me is a band where I can't really put on and listen to. I can listen to a song occasionally here and there, but they put on an awesome live show.
Absolutely.
I would say probably the other most memorable show for me was the Benefit for my buddy in 2015. And like this had such a massive lineup of like bands from Salt Lake. I probably missed some, but there were bands like Clear, Pushing Up Daisies, Aftermath of a Train Wreck, Tamerlane, uh, Skeef de Barg, Close Grip, Seven Daggers. I think that's and Cherim. Those are all the bands that played, and I remember specifically Cherim playing. They have this song called "I Hate George Bush." It's like a joke song to them, but for whatever reason, it just that's almost like just a Salt Lake anthem of a song.
Yeah.
Well, they did it. They did the song is with this other guy named, he calls himself Focus. He was a hardcore straight edge vegan rapper from like early
Nice.
2000s, late 90s. And
Yeah.
for the longest time, they were like convinced, like, hey, man, we're going to do that song and we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And it was this thing back and forth when no one knew. Maybe like when they're in a circle, they did. But I remember they got up and played. And there's a song they opened with, and you could hear the vocals, and you're like, check, check. And everyone kind of heard the vocals and went, it's happening. You're going to do it. I remember he was up there and he was like, this is only happening one time. And they played, dude. I think you can look up the live videos from this benefit on YouTube. I'll send you a link. This guy named Tyson Whitney filmed them, or majority of them. Dude, it's the most wild local show interaction I think I've ever seen, because the generations, there's like 3 or 4 generations in there, and they're all literally just killing each other. Like I remember during Aftermath of a Trainwreck song, Talk Shit Get Hit, they start singing that anthem, and like there's so many stage dives, it's literally like bulldozing the crowd. Like by the end of like the stage dives, it's literally just cleared out. But to me, that was like super memorable for many reasons. But I remember that in specific, and I was like, in my wildest dreams, I'm like, I never thought I would ever see that played.
Yeah.
So to me, I was like, this is bucket
That's
list
cool.
for me for sure.
One of the other shows, again, people are going to listen to this and be like, does Kyle even like hardcore? me and me and the same Chris, the habitual mooner. It's crazy that like all these shows were with him. Mostly because when I saw non-hardcore shows, he would go with me because he wasn't like super into a lot of that. So, but
Right.
we saw Paramore in like 2006, right after All We Know Is Falling, like their first album came out and they toured.
Mm-hmm.
We saw them in this little tiny venue in Salt Lake and hung out with all of them out front.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm 16 and like the age difference wasn't even that different. So it was like cool to hang out with a band. But it's one of those where you look back on and you're like, that's actually kind of cool to sit there and hang out with Paramore after their first album, because they are like one of the largest pop punk bands in the
Right.
world. I mean, they opened for Taylor Swift, you know? And so like just to look back on that, it was like, yeah, I like hung out with them way before they were anything, you know? And that's just kind of a cool experience and thing to think about.
Well, that album Riot is like defined another genre
Yeah,
of that kind of music. Like it's funny.
absolutely.
I was talking to this girl I used to work with a while ago, and when Paramore released their newish record, which I'm a fan of that record too, even though it's so different. I remember that single
Yeah.
they released. It was so different that I was like, I don't want to like this, but I was like, I really do. It's really good.
Yeah.
But I remember her saying, she's like, I really just wanted another Riot album, but I know that's never going to happen. And I'm like, probably not. But like,
Yeah.
man, that band's awesome. I've never seen Paramore. It's one band I never
Yeah.
got to see.
I mean, I've seen them, like I saw them a couple times. I think they did like a Warped Tour after that, especially after Riot came out and I saw them, but it just didn't feel the same to be in like a tiny venue with 30 of us listening to that first album and not really knowing what it was going to become. And then the last show I'll talk about, because I've talked about it before, but seeing Misery Signals in 2006 with Norma Jean, like pre lineup change. I think it was, yeah. No, maybe it might have been right after.
I think it was right after. I think they because the Chariot started, I think, in 2006.
Yeah, it was like right around that time, right? But yeah, it was like between the Buried and Me when they were still heavy, Norma Jean, Misery Signals, and I remember having to like climb on merch tables to not get freaking punched, just because of how wild the crowd was for like Misery Signals and stuff.
So sick.
Those are good memories, and I'm like 15, 16 going to that show, and that like set my mind in a course of like this is it. Like, this is the real deal. This is what I'm about. This is the music. It's like, it's a calling now, you know,
Yep.
that show definitely solidified all of that.
There's definitely those shows too where like you kind of like what I was talking about that Amir show. I'm like it's either like this is for you or it is not.
Yeah.
Whether it goes south or not, it's just like that's what it is, and you
Yep.
just have to whether it's a pick a side or hold your own or do whatever. Yeah, it definitely weeds out people that it just isn't for them because
Sure.
that's wild. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's it.
Because I felt that way too on that Newfound Glory show when Shai Hulud opened for him.
Mm-hmm.
I would be surprised if like people that listen to this or have been in the hardcore scene for a while didn't have similar paths that we did, right? Like, I don't think people just were in the hardcore scene. Because like you were saying, like if you're a 13-year-old kid and you see some dude get like his nose busted open from the pit, like at 13, you're going to get turned off by that, most likely, right?
100%.
So you kind of have to like ease your way into it. And then eventually you get to these points, like you're saying, where you're like, you kind of have to decide like, this is for me or not. And it's like different scales, right? Like Misery Signals is one thing, but seeing Shai Hulud and when was that tour? 2007, maybe?
Shai Hulud. I think it was 2008 because I think
Newfound
it was
Glory?
Newfound Glory and Set Your Goals and Shai Hulud.
And I remember, so like 2008, like I'm 17, like turning 18. I've hardcore danced a whole bunch. Like I've been to like heavy deathcore shows. I've seen Whitechapel and I've been to the Acacia Strain and all that stuff. But then you go to a show like that and I see these 40-year-old dudes that are like tattooed from their face down. And it's like, it's a whole nother level, right? You're just like, yeah, this is the next step in the hardcore path.
This is the final boss.
Pretty much. Yeah. So, and those guys, it didn't just stop with Shai Hulud because all of Set Your Goals and Newfound Glory was freaking wild too.
Yeah.
So,
no,
I'm like up front for Newfound Glory and I'm like a 40-year-old just dove on me and took out like 30 people, you know? So
that's sick.
Yeah.
We can reminisce a little bit. I know we're kind of coming up on time, but I did want to talk about these things. What's wild to me, so growing up, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but Battle of Bands was a huge deal. Like, whether it was at a high school or whether they hosted it in the venue. And what's interesting to me is, like, so me and Kyle went to the same high school, Viewmont High School. Well, he went to Viewmont High School. I just kind of went there and got people to leave school with me. But anyway, we probably had 5 or 6 bands out of Viewmont High School, and they would go play Battle of the Bands. And like to kind of give like a mile radius, maybe within like 10 miles, there was like 3 other high schools, and they all had bands too. So on average, we go to these Battle of the Bands out in the middle of Salt Lake. Why our parents ever thought that like sending all the 15 and 16-year-old kids to downtown Salt Lake right next to the homeless shelter to go play Battle of the Bands blows my mind. But most of the bands that would play, like we knew or we were friends with, and it's just wild to me because in today, like maybe I'm just disconnected to it, but I think in today's scene, and at least in Salt Lake, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
it's just not a thing. Is it a thing down there? Or
I don't know. I'm not hanging out with high school kids out here. So
you know what I mean? Like I don't know if you ever see like Battle of the Bands or something like that, like at a venue.
No, I mean, honestly, this music's not very popular down here anyways. I think there's been a shift a little bit because you know what's funny, and it's a really cool point that you bring this up because like in high school, you're right. There were all these high school Battle of the Bands, and even like me and Trevor have joked about it. Like you drummed for the band that we were in for a little bit, right? Like we played in a sucky high school band and stuff. What's funny is we're talking about this like resurgence of hardcore in Salt Lake City and how good they are. Well, that's a lot of the kids that we were hanging with and that were playing back in the day that sucked, right?
Right.
So it's kind of funny how that's come full circle, that it's like these are the kids that weren't good at these Battle of the Bands, but now they've gotten a little older and they've figured it out, and there's dang good music coming out of Salt Lake. So
yeah,
it's just kind of, I mean, look at all the bands you were in and stuff too, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you were in some dang good bands. So
what always made me laugh too is some of the bands that would do Battle of the Bands that took it way too serious. Like, no, dude, we really need to win this $1,000 so we can record one song to send it to a major label. And I'm like, dude, your band sucks. Like, $1,000 recording ain't
Yeah,
gonna help your case.
yeah,
Yeah, I just remember like probably what would you say, maybe 70 to 100 classmates maybe. And it
yeah.
wasn't just like one genre of band. I remember
There was a decent spread.
there were like instrumental bands, there were straight up like misfit punk bands,
Hmm.
ska, rock, like just like old rock bands, hardcore
Yeah.
bands, whatever. Super
It was
wild.
always funny going to those because a lot of the kids that I played sports and stuff and had friends in like different groups, and a
Mhm.
lot of them would go to these battle of the bands, and then they'd see like me and you in the pit just like throwing kids, and a lot of them were just like, "Wow," makes
Real
it kind of
mature.
makes you, yeah, see it in a different perspective when they see you freaking toss somebody into the edge of the pit and stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
good times.
Well, it's funny, and that kind of bleeds into this, maybe this last thing we'll talk about, but uh, there was a festival that we started in 2005 with some other friends I was hanging out with at the time. So this is my freshman year in high school. What is it? How does high school go? Is it
You'd have been a sophomore.
sophomore?
Yeah.
In Utah, your freshman year is your last year of junior high. So it's a little weird.
Uh huh.
So sophomore year. So I guess if you want to call it, when I was still in junior high, we had a friend pass away in a car accident like a couple weeks before graduation out of junior high. Dude, it was super rough. Even people that weren't like close to him, I think, dude, it just hit the entire school like a ton of bricks because it like the one kid passed away, another kid was like in a coma and didn't know what had happened, and then there was a girl in the same car too, and she was in medically induced coma for months after. So it was just like, dude, it just wrecked like the entire school. I remember, and I remember like the funeral and stuff. Like, dude, it was huge. There were so like it was like the entire school left school
Yeah.
that day and went to the funeral. Anyway, like it made such a huge impact that like I remember not freshman, wow, sophomore year. I had a buddy come up to me and was like, "Hey, I wanted to do this festival for our buddy, and like, would are you in a band? Would you want to play? And at the time, I wasn't. We was like in a project, but it wasn't like a band per se. But I was like, yes, yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And I remember we kind of passed that around, and we did the first festival, and it was something silly, like it was something at a park, nothing super crazy. But I remember there were so many bands that just wanted to play. Yeah, it just reached out, and I remember dude, there had to have been like 200 kids there.
I know.
It was super
So
weird.
I remember the first one we did for that because yeah, I would have been in 8th grade because you were in 9th grade. So
Well, this
my
would have been
older brother,
I would have been 10th grade when we did this.
okay,
So he
I
passed
still
away
think
at the very end of my ninth grade year.
that's right. I think my brother was still in high school. I don't remember though. Regardless, my older brother, he like knew about it too, and like all of his friends went. There were like bands that were like kids his age,
Mm-hmm.
that played for as well, and it was ton. And I remember there was like a thrash metal, like almost like a power violence type band that played. I can't remember
Yeah.
who they were. And my brother started moshing and stuff, and so here I am, like 4 years younger than my brother, and I see him in there moshing, and I remember running and just jumping up and hammer fisting him on top of the head. And he turns around, dude, and just punches me right in the chest. And I just like laid on the ground and I was like, I can't freaking breathe. Yeah. I remember that very well because I was like, I'm going to go get one on my brother while he's in there. And it
Yeah.
didn't turn out well.
I remember. So the band that I was in, I can't remember what the band was called, but we covered Avenged Sevenfold. We thought we were
Dude,
so
I
cool.
remember that. I remember that.
And I remember
Yeah.
a huge mosh pit broke out, and that was like the first mosh pit that I was like, dude, I want to play music like this. I want people to,
I want people to mosh for me. Yeah.
I'm sure it was totally just thrashed or whatever. But that fest, man, like I was saying, kind of with Battle of the Bands, dude, it drug so many bands together, and like they all went to high school together.
Yeah.
I remember it got as big as we got it into the fairgrounds one year, and we did like 2 stages. And
Sick.
I remember we went to Home Depot and we built the second stage. Dude, that was wild. And I remember there was a band called A Forgotten Farewell. Do you remember them at all?
Uh-huh. I did.
Um, not a very good band, but I remember they sold them. The way they put the lineup that year is whoever sold the most tickets, like
Uh-huh.
that was how you fell in line with the lineup that day. And I remember some of the bigger bands were so mad, but I was like, we were just like, yeah, whatever, sell more tickets. And dude, they were so good at selling tickets because they had so many friends and so many younger kids loved that band. And I
Yeah.
remember they played, and I got up with their singer and started screaming with him on stage. And we got so many people on that stage. We probably had like 100 people on that stage. They started kicking people off because the whole stage was rocking back and forth. We all thought we were going to die. But I remember I was screaming, and there was this young kid, dude. He had been like 12. I remember vividly grabbing him like by his head with the microphone on in my mouth or whatever, and I just was
Uh-huh.
screaming so loud, and he was just looking at me like, "Oh!" But yeah, I
I
remember
love
that
that.
we got at the fairgrounds one year, and it kind of
I
went back to like the whole park deal, and it kind of fizzled out. But that was a huge part of like where we grew up for a while.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, like I feel like that's been missing from the hardcore scene for a little bit. Cause not necessarily just the DIY. Like I still think there's a decent DIY scene, but I feel like the DIY scene, it's shifted a little bit to like college kids are really the ones kind of carrying the torch right now, you know?
There isn't really like a local showcase show necessarily. I guess
Yeah.
I get maybe that's not true. The Black Lung Society opening show was all local showcase, but it was also brand new venue. But like I get what you're saying. Like there isn't really like local shows anymore. It's like
Yeah.
some kind of touring
And
act coming through.
it doesn't even have to be like hardcore, because that's what was like we were saying with these battle of the bands is you had all these different types of music genres. I wonder if people are just like, well, it's cooler that I just post crap on Instagram and see if I can get found. But that
Mhm.
sucks, because I think about us being like 13, 14, going to a battle of the bands and seeing all local bands, and seeing
Mhm.
all your kids from school there and kids from other schools that you knew. And
Yep.
like I going to a freaking park show. Like you never see park shows anymore. At least not like, I don't know if other places do. And if they do, let us know, because we want to be involved in that.
Yeah.
But I do feel like this younger generation, they're missing out on a lot of that. Maybe it's because social media and all that crap has ruined it, that you don't have to go play in a pavilion at a park,
Dude, park shows hold just they hold a special place for kind of two reasons. One, like they could portray to any genre, right?
Yeah.
Like what was so cool about a park show in the beginning was you would come out from fourth period of your class and you go out to your car and there's a flyer, show tonight, free,
Yeah.
free show tonight at Barnes Park. And it was like,
Yep.
dude, that's sick, and it's like all your friends from school are going to be there and some cool bands, maybe a few others. And you're like, dude, this is sick.
Yeah.
And that was huge exposure because it was like your parents weren't going to let you go out to Salt Lake. There was probably a lot of parents that were like that, but
Yeah.
going down the street to the park to hang out with your friends was different.
Yep.
And what coolest part about it, Barnes Park especially, cops never showed up or got called. It just went. And then kind of what a little after that, park shows kind of happened on accident because a lot of venues would not host hardcore shows or particular bands. And so it was like, okay, well, we'll just prepay for a pavilion for $20 and then we'll
hmm
get a sound ordinance or whatever and we'll just grill some hot dogs and we'll watch some
Yeah.
bands play. And
Yeah.
that, dude, that is just an era that I feel like if you missed
Kids
out
will
on it,
never understand.
yeah,
Kids will
you've
never
missed out.
understand.
Yeah, having to like dodge the freaking 3-inch bolts that bolted down the cables, or like you'd have
Yeah.
to put pop cans on them so you wouldn't kill your feet, or trying to mosh in like grass and just die.
Slipping and stuff. Yeah, dude.
The sprinklers turn
Yep.
on and you don't know.
Yeah.
That was rough.
Yep.
Yeah,
I remember when we played in that band, I don't know if you were drumming for us actually, but we were doing a park show and it started raining.
I don't
And
remember.
all of us were like trying to stuff gear under the pavilion and everything's getting wet. But even then, like, even that's like a fun memory to look back on because, you know, playing at a park show while it's raining and everyone's getting all muddy, but everyone's still moshing and crap. Like,
I remember
that's
there was
just as a high school kid, like, you don't like that's one of the greatest memories you'll have, you know?
I remember one year it rained at Jake Fest, and like we woke up to snow, and this was beginning of October. It was just going to be one of those years, and we went and bought tarps and everything and tried to cover everything, and we were still having power shortages all day. I remember I wrecked this kid Jeremy's van into a pole, like totally destroyed the side of his car, dude. Just absolutely annihilated it. Couldn't open up the door, and dude, it was so bad. But yeah, just struggles like that, or even like I remember some shows where like cops would show up and like they'd recognize some of us and they'd be like, "Don't go anywhere."
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, there were so many cool bands too, and then it kind of started getting back into venues like Mojo's Cafe, the basement for a little bit, and it kind of found its way back into venues and things like that. But yeah, the park era shows, if you've missed out on that, you'll never know.
And kids these days, well, I just don't think they're doing it. I see clips every now and then in like California of people playing in parks or something, but it's not very often. And it's usually like bigger, older bands that are, you know, like doing a throwback set or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the days of, yeah, you walking out to your car with flyers and people showing up at a park to play, it just doesn't happen, which is a missed opportunity. I hope it comes back. You know,
Yeah.
my son is getting really into this music. We'll put on vinyls and stuff. We just listened to the new With Honor. Like I say new, but I think it came out last year, but the With Honor album. And I like see him like kind of rocking out and stuff while he's listening to it. And I just think back on like, man, I hope he can have those memories, right? Like I hope he can pile in a car and drive to a park and get out and like mosh for his friend that they sound absolutely terrible, you know, on tin can speakers and stuff. But like, that's what this music's about. That's what the scene's about, you know?
Right.
So
Exactly.
I hope it happens.
Yeah.
Shoot, maybe I'll be the old guy throwing shows in the backyard or something, you know?
Well, you know what's funny? So like I've got a pool in my backyard, but like it's got a few holes in it, and we're gonna get rid of it this next summer. So I was talking to my wife. I'm like, what should we do with it? You know, because I've got a massive cement pad in the middle of my backyard, and it's like it's a circle, you know. And she's like, well, we'll get a fire pit and some chairs and stuff like that. And I was back there last night, and I was just like, dude, we should play a show.
We should throw a show.
Dude, it would be big enough to put all the band stuff on it, and then just think of that like, hey, backyard house show, respect the house, come to the backyard.
Crow Killer farewell show or something, dude.
Yeah,
in your backyard,
dude. Yeah,
and wait for me to. You got to do it on a weekend when I fly out to Utah. So
yeah, those are. I don't like you say. We've been to so many shows that like I can't. Not one that like really sticks out to me, but dude, every park show was just like something else.
And not to get like cheesy, but like that's like the important thing about this scene is like the music's really good, but it's the culture, it's the friends you made along the way, you know. It's all that stuff. It's not just the music.
I guess to add the cheesiness a little bit, it kind of speaks volumes about your dedication. You know, it's really easy to go to a show when it's already been booked by a venue and all that's taken care of. Now do it yourself. That is straight up DIY. And there's a lot of people that talk about it, be like, oh, that'd be cool. But yeah, man, there was just always a group of friends like, okay, who's renting the park? I'll call, you know, I'll have my mom pay for it somehow. You know, write them a check, and then we'll get these bands down here. We're all going to share a cab, and every single time, who got the PA? Nobody.
Nobody.
Well, it's been fun, kind of reminiscing about that. I mean, I know we've kind of hinted at talking about some of the stuff through the episodes, but we've never really dove into it. So,
yeah, it's just, I mean, this has been a lot of what this podcast is just thinking about, because I know, because we've talked to some people that listen to us. They're, you know, close to the same age group as us, shared similar sentiments and memories. And so that's just what's cool about it, you know, and thinking back and honestly, I'm getting old enough with my kids where it's like, okay, maybe I can teach them how to start doing it too. So those are memories that you look back on that you'll never forget. You know, I'm sure I'm going to be some 90-year-old guy in a rocking chair with my kids being like, back in my day, like we'd fight each other at the park to a, you know, hardcore show.
100%.
None of
100%.
this stupid Instagram or whatever. So,
Well, Trevor should be back next week. I guess if he's not, then he did drown.
yeah. This
What
is
was?
going to age either very well or very bad.
Yeah,
So,
maybe he won't. Maybe he'll delete the pod. I don't know.
yeah.
I think
I will say before we end, we got a couple cool episodes coming up, a couple bands that we're going to be talking to. So, make sure to stick around and pay attention to the next couple weeks. We got some cool bands. So,
yeah, I think next week we're gonna dive into no bragging rights. Is that right?
yeah,
So
which you're gonna. I usually don't get offended by your musical opinions, but you're gonna break my heart when you talk about how you don't like them because this
it's
band is like
it's
super important to me.
it's getting better. It just I don't know. It's getting better. Maybe my opinions won't be so bad, but
Dude, Cycles is like an all-time like top 3 album for me
I
ever of all
I
time.
actually
So
I've been enjoying that record more than the others. I'll say that. Anyway,
it'll be a good episode because I think we got some good stories about them. Check
never
in next
fighting.
week. So
Yeah, yeah.
thanks, dude.
Later.
Bye.